Hey, everybody, welcome to episode number 87 of the Debt Free Dad podcast. So check this out. 8 in 10 parents think that their child's competitive or extracurricular activity could one day lead to income. And over half admit they spend more than they can afford on extracurriculars. And 64% of parents admit they are stressed out about paying for their child's extracurricular activities. So the question is, are these types of activities worth the cost and the financial stress? And this can be a sensitive topic, talking about finances and giving your kids those experiences. We're going to talk about it on today's show. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Debt Free Dad podcast, where we're helping normal, everyday people learn how to save money and kick debt so they can live a happier and stress-free life. Now here's your host, Debt-Free Dad, Brad Nelson.
Hey, how's everyone doing today? You can find me on Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search Brad Nelson, Debt-Free Dad, and we would love to connect with you on one of those social platforms. And welcome to today's show. And as we've said on a couple of other podcasts that we've been doing here recently, we really appreciate the feedback that we've been getting. So many of you have been listening and taking those very first steps and doing a lot of things that we talk about on this show, whether you're using the Debt Freedom Planner, whether you recently joined our membership program, Roots Personal Finance. But it's just been really exciting this summer to see so many people who have taken action. And today, we're going to be talking about a little bit more of an in-depth topic, I think. And we have never covered this. This is going to be more of a conversation and really just kind of talking about, you know, extracurricular activities and sports, music, and getting your kids involved in these types of things and how this affects personal finances. And we're going to kick off today's show a little bit just with some statistics and some numbers. And I mean, I know that these things are happening. I've coached many people who struggle with this, and we struggle with it. I think all parents struggle with this at times, is figuring out, okay, how much money do we really want to invest and give our kids these experiences, along with, hey, how can we still reach our financial goals and be able to save and be able to do the things that we want to do? It's also, there's some parents in there that get really, I think, serious about this and tend to put way too much money into it. We're going to talk a little bit about that here today. But here's just a couple of statistics to kick off the show. A survey conducted by the Aspen Institute along with Utah State University Families and Sports Lab found that kids on average right now are quitting sports at age 11. Now, there's multiple reasons, but one of those top reasons is the higher cost of playing the sports. And the reason I want to kick the show off with this is because if you've been listening to this podcast and you have kids and you want to give them more experiences, the easy solution to giving your kids more experiences is to do the stuff that we're talking about on this show. It's really to get your family on a much better financial plan and doing those budgets, having an emergency fund, paying down debt. The better you improve your cash flow, the more opportunity you're going to be able to say yes to putting your kids into some of those things that right now you might not be able to because you're saying, hey, we just can't afford it. So to kick off the show, I just want to mention that. Like, that's the other side to this, that if you want your kids to have more opportunities, go back and listen to the 80s plus episodes that we have to this. Get yourself involved with our social or on our social media accounts and start doing this stuff. And your kids will magically start to be able to have more experiences when it comes to this. But we're going to focus on the other side, the side that people are taking this to the more extreme level and they're going into debt. And this is some information conducted by Lending Tree, an article titled 8 in 10 Parents Think Kids' Extracurricular Activities May One Day Lead to Income, written by Matt Schultz. And it says, to kick off the whole article, and we're going to read it again, 8 in 10 parents think that their kids' competitive activity could one day lead to income. And they say the more you spend, the more likely you are to think it will pay off. 90% of parents who spend at least $4,000 per year think that their kid will one day earn money off of that particular sport, compared to 75% of parents who spend less than $1,000. But guys, 90% of people who are spending $4,000 or more a year think that their kids are going to earn money. But the second statistics shocks me the most. 75% of parents who spend less than $1,000 think that their kids are going to earn money off of these sports and these extracurricular activities. Do those numbers shock you guys? I mean, maybe I just don't believe in my kids that much. I mean, seriously, like my kid's pretty decent at sports. He's okay, but I'm like, there's never been a moment where I've been like, yeah, he's totally going to make it big time doing what he's doing.
I would say I don't know, that's shocked, but it is 100% surprising that, especially when you say 75% of parents who spend less than $1,000. I mean, my kids have been in activities their whole life. And I guess the way I've always parented and the way I've always felt is if my child wanted that and was really wanting to like be the best and was really pushing, I could then kind of see it, but I don't know. I mean, just it's kind of like the lottery. I mean, the percentage of people who make it into professional sports is such a small, tiny percentage. When you think of the millions and millions of kids who are out there, I mean, if you're kind of betting on them making money, you probably could be playing scratch offs. I mean, it's right. A 1 in a million shot that they're going to be anything. Right.
Yeah. And the other statistic that follows this up, it says 94% of parents currently paying off debt that they went into for their kids' activity. 94% think that it will lead to future income. 94%. That's mind-blowing to me. So again, maybe I'm looking at myself as a parent. Maybe there's something wrong with me because I just don't maybe believe in my kids that much with that kind of stuff.
But maybe this is the excuse that this is why, okay, I could justify paying this because someday they might earn money doing it.
Right. Absolutely. Sure. I mean, I could definitely see people going through that in their mind saying that, yeah, this is a good choice. This is going to be good for him and they're justifying it. Absolutely. So a few other statistics along this is 46% of parents spend more than $1,000 annually on their kids' activity and 27% spend more than $2,000. Nearly 2/3, 64% of parents are stressed about paying for their child's competitive activities. 64% that's like over 6 out of 10 people are, the activities or the costs are stressing them out. Naturally, the more you spend, the more you are stressed. 56% of those who spend less than $1,000 are often or sometimes stressed, compared to 76% of those who spend more than $4,000 a year. And I'm going to say, that $4,000 a year is probably more on the extreme side. Obviously, the majority of people are probably going to be that $2,000 to $1,000 or less. 62% have been in debt for their kids' activity, and 1 in 3 are currently paying off related debt. And of those in debt, nearly 1 in 10 owe more than $5,000, 27% owe more than $3,000, and more than half say they spend more than they can afford. Over half admittedly say they spend more than they can afford, but 48% don't regret it. And Amber, I think that goes back to what you were saying, justifying it because you're giving your kids this experience. They believe that there's potential that there could be income from that. Yeah, I could totally see why there may not be any regret in those decisions at all.
That's a hard one because, I think of the experiences I've given my kid and I don't necessarily, it's like after the fact. Do I regret it? I don't for them, but I really do for us, and I think that's the hard part is where I made a lot of sacrifices for them and did, in my opinion, some stupid things so they could have this experience that quite honestly, for the most part, I thought it was important. They maybe enjoyed it, but if they would have never had the experience, they would have been just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally see that. Like right now, and our son's in Taekwondo. He just earned his black belt back in June, and it's been an up and down battle with Taekwondo, and we're not going to get into why. I think Taekwondo is a little bit more of a unique activity in sport compared to like other sports where it's team orientated. And there's been some things that we had to work with our son when it came to some of that, and there was some interest that was lost, and what did he really like it? So we were kind of working our way through some of that stuff, but. For me, one of the reasons why I have him do Taekwondo is from a discipline and consistency standpoint. I think there is a lot of value in what these experiences are giving these kids. There's no question. Also being able to be led by someone other than your parents, I think, is super important. Being able to be told what to do and they're doing it, right? Because when you grow up and you get a job, or if you're at some point, you're going to have to listen to some other forms of leadership in your life. And if you're only just listening to your parents, you never ever get that experience of getting led by somebody else. But discipline, consistency, and I think a lot of the things that you learn in sports, or whether you're playing music or any of these things, the thing I like about these things and these activities the most is that this teaches just how success is made. No one steps on the Taekwondo mat and is just a 6-degree black belt. Nobody steps on a basketball court and is NBA star the first day that they go. But in the world that we live in, we're taught that, you can have everything you want for a low price of $19.95 in 30 days and your whole life will be changed. And that's just not how life really works. So I think these sports are definitely needed for kids. I think there's definitely a need, but I think there has to be, from a parent standpoint, there also has to be a limit, and you have to have some level-headedness to this too, I think, guys. And that's where I think a lot of people kind of fall off. And Amber, I think you brought up a good point. I think a lot of people justify it by saying, and along with what I said, like, I'm giving them this experience, like, and that's why there's no regret, because you're giving them those experiences, you're giving them those life lessons, and some people are willing to go into debt, and even to the point of stressing out. Over half of the people, 62%, are stressed about this, and they're willing to go through that emotional stress to give those kids those experiences. And for me, that's where I draw the line, right? That's where it's like, no, I'm not even going to go that far. And even, obviously when I started out my journey, I didn't really have to go through this when my kids were old enough to go through sports. When I first started getting out of debt and when I became debt-free, Noah wasn't even in kindergarten yet. So he wasn't even really, I think he had just started like rec soccer, which is really an expensive sport. Not, it's like $50 to play. So we never really got him into some of these super expensive sports where, like, we're talking about Taekwondo. But I know, based on what we've spent on Taekwondo over the last 4 years, we've spent well over $5,000 to have him earn a black belt over the last 4 or 5 years now. It's expensive. It is an investment. There's no question. And going back 10 years ago, would we have been able to take on something like that? Absolutely not. It wouldn't have even been an option. And in fact, I wouldn't have even considered it, and I would have had to tell him, hey, we just don't have the money for that. It's a very expensive sport. Noah's brought up other sports, and it's like, dude, I can only afford so many activities for you, and we tell him exactly what the costs are for Taekwondo, and he's currently in soccer and things, and it's like, we can only do so much, so we have to pick and choose. And honestly, and I tell him straight up, it's like, that's how life is going to be. Like, when you get older and you're an adult, you have a job or you own your own business, like, you can't say yes to everything and not put yourself deep into debt. Like, it just doesn't work that way. You have to give yourself limits, you have to have a budget, and you have to pick and choose based on what you want to do and the things that you want to experience. Like, these are the things I'm going to focus on. You have to let the other stuff go away. So we're going to go ahead and go through some tips. So number one, like, if you're experiencing this 62%, and I think there's a lot of guilt that goes along with this too, and I've spoken with parents that one of the primary reasons, and I think this is a great motivator, we talk a big reason why having a good why, why you want to get out of debt. A lot of parents feel guilty about telling their kids no too often because they can't afford it, they're broke, they just don't have the money, and they want to be able to give their kids those experiences. But at the same time, you're also not being selfish. That, if you're on your financial plan and your main goal is to get out of debt, you're not being selfish by saying no. You do have to have some sort of a backbone as a parent. Very much like I described in our conversation that I'm having with Noah all the time when he wants to try all these different things. And it's like, well, wait, dude, we've already committed to all of these other things that we're working on or we're doing. Like, we don't have the money to say yes to all of those things. So I'm totally fine saying no to him. But at the same time, I also understand that we are already giving him those experiences. So if you're in a situation where you're not, I can totally relate to the guilt. But use that as a why, like, hey, we want to give our kids these experiences. This is part of the reason why we want to take control of our finances and get out of debt. So we can say yes more often. But your child's activity shouldn't be more important than your emergency fund. It shouldn't be more important than especially reducing like high interest credit card debt and consumer debt. It shouldn't be more important than saving for your retirement. Like, if you're putting off saving for retirement to put your kids through these activities and these extracurricular activities, like, that is a bad decision. Think about this. There's no guarantee that they're going to make any money at this sport. There is a guarantee that you are going to retire one day. Like, you are going to reach a time in your life where you no longer are going to be able to work, and you're going to have something there. So committing to spending that kind of money year after year after year is really going to hinder your retirement savings. So you shouldn't be prioritizing extracurricular activities and sports over retirement savings. But these things should be the priorities, and then anything after that, anything that we have left, is what you can use to then work with. But I think a lot of parents beat themselves up and they say, because I can't give my kids all of these experiences, I'm a bad parent. I just don't agree with that. I think I think you are doing yourself no favors by having that attitude going into it. But I think you could look at this and say, this can be the reason. This can be a big part of our why and why we want to get out of debt.
And for us, I mean, as we went through our debt journey, we didn't want to strip all those things away. So when you talk about being selfish, we did the unselfish thing, and we looked at the budget and we looked at different things and said, okay, if we're going to, my kids did marching band. And if you don't know if you don't know a lot about marching band, it's freaking expensive. I had no idea. I thought it was like, oh, they're going to do band and cool, until I found out I got to buy like a $1,500 trumpet, and the band fees are $1,200 a year, and all these other things that go with it. I was like, holy cow. And so we wanted them to have that experience. But what did that mean? It meant we didn't go on any really nice vacations for the last 6 years while we were going through. I mean, we went on vacation, but it was pretty much go to see parents, go to see family, stay as cheap as possible. We didn't do any fancy Disney trips like we would have loved to do, because I was paying for band fees and all these other additional things. And so that was a discussion as a family we made together. Hey, we can do this, but there's consequences. I can't just do this and keep doing all this if we're going to get out of debt. And like you said earlier in the podcast, as we got out of debt, and then we can provide all kinds of opportunities, more opportunities than what I could ever provide, and very unselfish opportunities. Like, go try it. If you don't like it, who cares? When you're in debt and you're paying $1,000, you better like it. You better like it, and you better not be upset if you don't like it, but when you're out of debt, that pressure on you and the kid goes away, because now they can just really enjoy it and try things. And if you don't like it, it's okay. Yeah.
And I think that's important though. And once they get to a certain age, you can have those conversations with them, and you could share with them, this is what this costs. This is what this is going to take away from us. If we do this, is everybody okay with that? At a younger age, though, there's a lot of activities that you could find that you could give them experiences with, and it doesn't cost as much. So there's that give and take. So I think a lot of it comes down to what's in us as parents, what's in our brain, even going as they're little, like, oh, they got to do dance, they got to do this, they got to do that. When in reality, they'd be just as happy going to the park.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not even talking about the time stress on the parents when it comes to these things. When you're running them all over the place and having to pick them up for practice. Oh yeah. We're not even getting into that conversation today. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So yeah, I think the next point is really to help them determine what their interests are. And this was something that we really struggled with Taekwondo. Noah really enjoyed Taekwondo early on. When he was just a white belt, high white, got into yellow, got into green. Like he was happy about it. He was excited about it. But after he gets to be like purple and brown, that's when things start to get hard. And that's when he wanted to quit. And this was like 2 years in. We'd already had probably $2,500 invested in this. And now he's like, wants to give up because this is going to get hard, right? And we fought as a family, like really hard at this. Like, what do we do? Like, do we let him give up and say when things get hard, like, you should quit? Or do we push on? Because we couldn't figure out, like, is he really not liking it, or is he starting just to not like it because it's hard? And those are two different things. So make sure you're obviously determining your kid's interests and strengths, because we struggled with this one halfway through Taekwondo. It's like, maybe he's just not into this anymore. Maybe this just isn't going to be his thing. And the hard part for us is we had these sunken costs already into this. So it's like, do we really pull him out? Like, do we lose that? Does he lose all that experience he had and we just quit, or do we push through this? And now, thankfully, we've pushed through, and Noah's found a little bit more of his joy in Taekwondo. But even now, it's still a challenge. So as a parent for him, my goal is for him just to at least get his official first-degree black belt. And that'll be just in this next year. And then he'll be 12, and then he can decide. And it's like, if you want to keep going, fine. If you don't, we're good to go. Like, you met your goal. Like, we can go try some other things. But I think even when we look at 12 years old, this is going to be something we're going to sit down and talk about and say, what are the things that you really like to do? Because right now, Noah's 11, and all of a sudden he'll have a whim to be like, I'm going to be a professional basketball player. It's like, and he really wants to play basketball all of a sudden. Well, we've had him in basketball several years ago, and he didn't like it. Now all of a sudden he wants to play basketball again. So it's like, you really got to work with him on this, especially if you have limited money. Like, and you can't send them to every single experience. You got to make sure you can work with them on their strengths and their weaknesses and figuring out what's going to be the best fit for them. There's no question about that. And then do your homework, like Ryan said with band. Do your homework, right? I mean, because there's going to be ongoing costs, right? Especially for like things like band, things like taekwondo. I think we have people in Roots. I mean, Amber, you're up in Canada. Hockey's a big thing up in Canada.
Hockey's huge, and it's travel. Like, if you get on a travel team, my gosh, the hotel fees and then all the extra stuff you're all doing while they're not playing hockey. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. So those are the things that I would look at it. And I hear from parents who have kids that get their kids into these sports, and then they have that same thing that I was just talking about, that sunken cost feeling, like we've already put all this money into it. We can't quit now, like, and they like it, they're enjoying it, but yet they don't really have the money for it, and that is stressing their finances out. So make sure you really do the homework before you get your kids involved with some of these activities and know the long-term costs that are going to be associated to some of these things, especially as they get older. And then most importantly, you just got to have a budget. And I think this goes back to what we talked about first when we opened up the show. It's like, look, if you want your kids to have these experiences, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I'm all for them, but I think it's got to be within reason. And like I said, you still got to be prioritizing that emergency fund, prioritizing getting out of debt, especially high consumer credit cards, and taking care of that stuff. Like, and a budget and doing a lot of the stuff that we talk about on this show is only going to give you more opportunities to do those things. In fact, in Roots, we have a post that we share inside our Facebook group, and it's like share a fun cash purchase. And it's amazing how many child activity type posts that people will make that they were able to take their kids on vacation or let them play sports or let them be able to do some other things, all because they're working on a lot of stuff that we're talking about here on the Debt Free Dad podcast. And then last but not least, especially as they get older, just, get them involved. Like, I'm very open with Noah about the conversations when it comes to, money and taekwondo and the costs that are associated to it, especially when he wants to try and do other stuff. It's like, Ryan, it's like you said, when your kids decided that they wanted to do band and you guys kind of had a discussion about, well, that means we're going to do less other stuff. We do the same things. It's like, we camp a lot. We camp almost the entire summer, and not when it comes to sports, but Noah will ask to do other things that cost money. And it's like, no, we're not going to do that because we chose as a family, and especially my wife and I chose as a family, that these are the things that we're going to do, and these are the activities that we're going to focus on. And we can't do all of that other stuff because we just don't have enough money to go around to those things. It's not in the budget. So, but the more you get them involved with that, rather than just saying, no, we can't afford it, no, we're broke, the more they understand and get to appreciate the things that they actually get to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I think getting them involved, kind of going back to some of our other points and determining their interests and budget and everything is, for me, as a parent, it's always especially even for band, when we're spending all that money, you can't help as a parent to then have an expectation of your child. And that can really wear on a child and a kid. And I would just say that if you're spending all this money because they're going to be the next baseball pitcher, do they want to be? Is that really what they want, or do they just want to play baseball? And I think sometimes we get wrapped up in spending all this money, and then that just changes the relationship, because now you're wanting to get something for all this money you're spending, rather than really all you want is for them to go have fun and have a great time. And if they become a professional star, that's an awesome bonus out of it. But I know for me, it's hard. You spend all this money and you're like, you better be practicing. You better be doing this. You better, you just have these expectations because all this money is going out the door. And so I would just say, make sure that you're including them in those decisions. And if your kids aren't happy, kind of like you do with Noah, and like I've done with my kids, have those discussions. It's okay. They might not want to do that. They might just be okay playing rec baseball because they just love baseball. They don't care about being the next greatest person ever.
Yep, absolutely. And we made that mistake early on with Noah and soccer. Like he was, when he starts playing soccer at 5-6 years old, like that kid was flying up and down the field. He loved playing, and he wanted to start playing club level soccer. When he went up to club level soccer, it was more practicing, it was more games, it was more competitive, and he didn't like it anymore. He didn't want to play anymore, and he actually ended up quitting. And he's like, I want to play baseball instead. So he played baseball for a season, didn't really care for baseball that much. And then he said, it was like 2 years, I think he took off, maybe almost 3. And he's like, I want to play soccer again, but he's like, I just want to play the rec soccer. He's like, I don't want to play like the club, and I just want to be able to go out and play and have some fun. And so yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think that's why we were challenged so much with Taekwondo, is because it's like, is he really not having fun with this, or is he just wanting to quit because he'd rather play like Nintendo Switch, right? And that's the hard part as parents, because it's like, how do you differentiate that and say, like, are they really not enjoying it, or is it just that they're coming up with excuses that they just want to practice and they don't want to put in the hard work? And that's what I had such a hard time with him just up and quitting, especially before reaching black belt. So yeah, I mean, that's a whole discussion for another day. But anyways, guys, seriously, this is something to seriously consider when it comes to your finances, and it needs to be a topic of conversation, especially if you have kids, especially as your kids get older. And if you want your kids to have more experiences, just start working on the stuff that we're talking about on the show, and you'll be surprised that a lot more of those experiences they'll be able to have.
Hey, if you love planners, this is for you. But do you know why planners frustrate me? Because they only really get it half right. Now, sure, they're really good and fancy about helping you manage your time, which is really important, obviously. That's what a planner's for. But where they get it wrong is money, the second most valuable resource in our lives. Most planners don't include any financial planning. Things like, keeping track of paydays, bills, due dates, spending, yearly expenses, budgets, cash flow planning, debt elimination plans, and goal planning, right? None of that stuff. That's a real pain. And then what? Then you got to create your own in some silly binder, right? And who has time for all of that stuff? So instead, what happens? Nothing, right? A lot of people tend to ignore their finances even more, and things only get worse. Well, that all ends today, because I am so excited to announce and release my brand new, totally awesome debt freedom planner. This thing's awesome, by the way. Now, before you say, Brad, I've already got a planner. This is not an ordinary day planner. This is the Debt Freedom Planner, which is a companion tool that works with your day planner, and it's built to help you manage your money, pay off more debt, and melt away financial stress. And I believe this is the tool that a lot of people who want to take control of their finances have been waiting for. So head on over to therealdebtfreedad.com, click on the Debt Freedom Planner in the menu to get access to your planner today.
Hey, what's this I see? I thought this was a party! Let's dance!
All right, guys, that sound means it's time for the celebrations of the show. And today we're kicking it off with Gina Bilo made an $800 payment to the credit card. That is a huge chunk. Congratulations to you, Gina.
Cindy Berman still have $295 to last until payday on Monday. First time I've ever had money in years.
That is an amazing win. I love that. Talk about stress-free, though. Just having to live like that for years and then finally being able to have extra money. Such a great win. Great job.
Mary Southard, going to buy school clothes this afternoon with cash.
There you go, Mary. Congratulations to you, Elizabeth Wilson. Small win. I finished paying off the Sezzle payments I had pending. No more clothes buying until I get rid of some of the clothes I have in the closet. By the way, that is not a small win. That is a great big win, especially realizing that you don't have to buy any more clothes. You got enough, right? That's awesome. Great job.
Tamara Dutton making my final payment on one judgment, paid off all personal property tax, started a new payment plan on another credit card, and I had a long time ago, started to see the light.
Awesome. Great job, Tamara.
Michelle Paluzzi, I joined Roots even though I'm nervous and overwhelmed with debt, and how to balance it all on a single mom income.
That is a huge win, Michelle, and we're going to walk you through all of what you need to know in order to turn that around. We have a lot of single mothers, single income households, and they are crushing it. So we're so glad that you are a part of the program.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us here today. We love your feedback, and it also helps us grow our YouTube show. So please give us a like or leave us some honest feedback on this video. And if you want the latest from the show, obviously be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe to our channel. And for the latest resources, or if you want more information on how to kick debt and financial stress, please be sure to check out the links in this video or head over to therealdebtfreedad.com. We'll see you guys on an upcoming show. Take care.